Every summer, South Africa sees an increase in drownings, particularly during the festive season. The National Sea Rescue Institute is predicting about 200 drownings during this season. So how can they be prevented, and what should parents be doing in the unfortunate event of such an incident? Well, to tell us more is Dr Palesa Monyake from the South African Pediatric Association, and to take the conversation forward. Doc, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for your time. So this is, you work in that space where you work in pediatric ICU, but also with extensive experience even in the public sector. Just your sense of the problem of drownings and near drownings as it manifests and affects children over time from the work that you do. Sadly, you are on the receiving end when there's been an incident. What have you observed are the trends?
Thank you so much, Thulasizwe, and good day to your audience. Yeah, around the festive season, we often have a big problem around drownings, near drownings particularly. And the reason for this is, remember that it's the end of the year, and there's a lot of end of year fatigue, people are burnt out, people are in party mode, and so people are really less on guard when they're around swimming pools and so on. I also just want to mention that drowning is actually the third leading cause of accidental injuries and accidental deaths in the pediatric ICUs. This is both in the private sector and in the public sector. Remember also that people are in party mode, they're using alcohol, and they really want to relax. So this is when we really see the peak incidence of drowning accidents.
And I don't presume to make you a forensic investigator or anything, but I do imagine that in the work that you've been doing over the years, you do get a sense of the scenarios and situations that often lead to an incident involving a child. You talk about people being in party mode, people are fatigued. There's a sense that I've been looking after these children this whole year. I do deserve to just let them be, cut them some slack a little bit so I can also get a bit of a relaxation going on. But what are some of the common trends that come out of the scenarios that end up leading up to a drowning or a near drowning?
Yeah, so the most common thing, that we're now picking up recently is parents and adults actually being distracted around the pool. So people are often on their phones, they're on social media, and they don't realize that their children have been immersed underwater. So that's the first thing. The second thing is alcohol has always been a problem. So alcohol use and even drug use, unfortunately, is a common thing around the pool area. And then number three, just lack of supervision. That's another big thing that we often see during this time.
And there's always the emphasis on teaching children to swim as early as possible so that, if in the event of an incident, they could stand a fighting chance of being able to swim out of a sticky situation. Would you comment on that, on the importance of that, before we turn to what to do in terms of intervening, first aid, etc., but just the importance of teaching children water safety?
Absolutely. So it's one of the things that we teach as pediatricians and pediatric intensivists. That really is the take-home message, that it's important. And, children can learn how to swim as young as 2 months, actually. We often see videos on social media of young babies learning how to swim. Innately, they do know how to float. So we really do recommend parents to teach their children from a young age in terms of swimming lessons. And if you'll allow me, I would also like to expand on some of the other preventative measures that we also recommend parents implement, in their home. So firstly, I think it's important, if you look at modern architecture, and so a lot of the swimming pools are close to lounges, they're close to homes, and that in itself is a danger. So as pediatricians, we recommend that a swimming pool must be in a separate part of the yard and obviously fenced with a locked gate and a pool cover. A pool net is not as safe as a complete pool cover. So that's the first thing. The second thing in terms of swimming lessons for children, as we've mentioned, but we often forget to mention mention that adults themselves also need to know how to swim. We also then recommend life jackets or swimming jackets and floaters, those the colorful ones, cartoon characters that children can put on when they go swimming. And then the most important thing really is not to be distracted around the pool, something that we've mentioned earlier. Make sure that you are in arm's length, within arm's reach rather, when there are children playing around the pool. And then Thulasizwe, something that we often forget to mention is the importance of knowing how to do CPR.
Yes.
CPR is another preventative measure. Once your child has been immersed, so obviously the duration of immersion is important, but once you see that your child has been immersed, you take them out of the pool and you immediately commence CPR. So that's very important. And here I also want to mention, when we speak about drownings, the image that all of us often have are pools and dams and the ocean, but we forget that children can also drown in buckets and they can also drown in bathtubs. And I've seen a lot of cases of young babies, infants that have drowned in buckets of water and in bathtubs. So they, again, to ensure that you are not distracted, you're always with your child, and you empty out your bathtub and you empty out the bucket of water.
Wow, truly useful tip-offs there that you've just given. Finally, then, you mentioned CPR. And I must confess, I'm one of those parents who wouldn't have a clue where to start with CPR. Conceptually, I've got an idea, but I've never really tested my knowledge as to how exactly do you do chest compressions, etc., etc. We don't have much time, but what are the first key steps? The moment at which you've been able to pull out a child, a toddler, out of the water, what's the first step immediately after that?
So the first step is, so remember that the heart and the lungs are married. We often call them a married couple. So you really want to deliver oxygen as soon as possible because your brain cannot do without oxygen for a long time. So you want to deliver oxygen to the lungs, and those are called rescue breaths. You'll often see people performing mouth to mouth. So those are rescue breaths. And then chest compressions, because these children, unfortunately, the longer they are immersed underwater, unfortunately, they go into cardiac arrest. So you really want to get the heart going. And when you get the heart going with each chest compression, that pushes blood and oxygen around the body. What we're looking to do for 2023 is to really, so we have been doing it, trying to encourage our parents to go to CPR classes. It's called BLS. It's one of the drives that we are going to be doing as the South African Pediatric Association, but also as eNCA Waterfall City Hospital. We are going to be having essentially CPR drives for all of our parents. I will leave my details perhaps with your producer, and any parent who would like to sign up for those classes are more than welcome to.
Absolutely.
But the two big things, essentially, to answer your questions are the rescue breaths and chest compressions.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. Truly useful ahead of the festive season. Thank you for that initiative. That's Dr. Palesa Monyake there from the South African Pediatric Association. Really, really helpful information. Look out for this broadcast. I think we should have it online. I think it should go even further. It's critical information that she was sharing.